Hi and welcome back to another weekly Ask GMBN Tech. Get involved in the comments down there if you want to ask us any questions about mountain bike tech, be that past, present or future. And of course you can ask us personal questions about the things we like or the things that we might not like so much. Use that hashtag Ask GMBN Tech down there. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please hit that subscribe button, use the bell for notifications, and of course please do support us in the store as well. We've got loads of really cool clothing, and it's not just about race tops, we've got cool casual stuff and even stuff in the middle like the tech jersey kind of range, not to be confused with GMBN tech as in technical. Anyway, enough babbling from me. First question this week, this one actually is from one of the crew that work in our company that was really unlucky with a problem on his bike. So it's from Ed Fletcher. Guys, I went to service my headset last night and I found this. I slightly bent the top of the steerer months ago. It was a little low in the stem and stupidly didn't think anything of it. Any advice on what I could do would be much appreciated. I could get a new steerer pressed, or would I need a new CSU? So basically the picture you can see here, you see there's a bit of the steerer tube that's cracked. Now this is really, really unlucky. I've got a stem here I can show you with, but essentially when you're trimming down your steerer tube, you want to have the maximum amount of steerer tube inside the stem as possible for a good grip and a good contact, because obviously if there's not much steerer tube inside that stem and you're clamping on top of it, you're clamping around the edge of that steerer tube, you're going to end up doing exactly this, you're going to crack it. Now I would say the general rule of thumb is about 3 millimeters of overlap at the top, and that allows the top cap to take up slack in the system to make sure your bearings don't run loose, basically just to make sure everything is working as it should do. But any more than that, or any more than 4 millimeters, then you're into sort of dangerous territory there. So it's a fine line. So this is something you do need to have a look at, and I'd actually recommend everyone take the top cap off their stems and just have a look just to make sure that you've got sufficient amount of steerer tube on the inside. Anyway, Ed, with your problem, you've got a few different things you could do here. So yes, you can get the steerer tube replaced on that fork. So he told us it was a Lyric, by the way. So there's a company on the screen, RSF US UK, so they replace steerer tubes. There's another one based in Stirling. There's quite a few. If you look around, I'm sure there will be in whichever country you're watching from as well. So that is a great thing to get done. The other option, of course, you could replace the CSU. It is expensive, and that is the crown steerer upper assembly. So that is the stanchion tubes, the crown and the steerer tube, a whole new brand piece of the fork. And the result of that one, your whole fork will need to be rebuilt and serviced as well. So that is quite costly. But a little one you can do here, if you're running a number of spaces under your stem, one option would be literally to cut the steerer tube off where that crack is, or a tiny bit under it so it can't occur again. File it all off, remove a spacer, slam your stem, and then buy a handlebar instead of a new fork or a new CSU that's a little bit higher rise, just to compensate for how much you trimmed it down. That might be a workaround. Obviously it's not ideal, and if your stem is already slammed, then you're out of luck. You're going to need a new steerer tube. But hey ho, good luck, and don't do that one again. That's an expensive mistake. Next up from Sean Gallagher, my gears are skipping in the middle of the cassette only. Not sure why, as the gears are, or at least were, properly indexed. How do I fix this? Well, there's a few things it could be. The initial thing that comes to mind is the hanger is slightly bent, because even when the hanger's bent, it doesn't tend to affect the gears top and bottom too much. They can just go a bit weird in the middle. So I would look there to start with, but also see if the hanger is tight and see if the mech is mounted on. So check all these things, because any movement that can occur there's nothing to do with adjustments on the derailleur itself, can really affect your shifting. So things to look at are the axle. See if your main axle is tight correctly. See if the actual hanger, the way it mounts onto the frame, or the rear wheel axle, depending on the style of yours, is in the correct position and is locked in place. And check with the 5mm Allen key that your actual rear derailleur is mounted sufficiently onto the hanger itself. Because obviously if it's not, that's going to move things around slightly. So check those things, but I reckon probably a bent hanger there. And if it's bent and you're unsure about bending it back, take it to your local bike shop. Because there's a thing called a derailleur alignment gauge. I'll show you our one. It's quite a specific tool. This essentially down here will thread into the hanger, and you literally set this up so it aligns with the rim and rotate it around basically, and you basically use this to bend it into the correct position, and this to make sure it's completely straight all the way around. But that's quite a specialist tool. That's a bike shop spec tool, not really something you'd expect anyone to find at home. And yes, arguably you could bend it back with a pair of mole grips or something like that, but A, you risk snapping it off, and B, you're never going to be sure if it's completely straight. So best advice, go to your local bike shop and get that one fixed. Next up from Janet Bikes 84. I see you've been using a few different kid seats on your bikes. This directed me. Your old one looked much bigger and more secure. Can you tell me about the different types and advantages? Okay, well, hi Janet, firstly. So I think what you're probably referring to is the big bucket style seat I was using, the grey and red one. So that was made by a company called WeeRide, that's WeeRide. Do be careful when you type that one into Google, by the way. I found that one out the wrong way on looking on work computers recently. Anyhow, that was given to me by a friend called Finn from Full Factory Suspension. Now, he used it with his kid that's now grown out of the seat. It's a brilliant system. So it is quite heavy, partly because of the mounting system. It has almost like an artificial top tube, which is a steel top tube that clamps around your frame by the seat tube and then around just under the headset. Now, actually, the way it clamps on under the headset isn't quite ideal, but we found a really cool workaround. So under the stem, instead of 2 spacers, I actually put 2 headset bearings there, taking up the spaces, and I could clamp it onto those. That way it wouldn't affect my steering, so I had a nice sort of movable surface to clamp onto. But I absolutely loved the WeeRide system. It's absolutely brilliant. It's got stirrups that are adjustable up and down for different sized little legs, and it's got a full harness system, so your little one is nice and safe in there. And even if you fall off the bike, they can't come out the bike. So if you just tumbled over, they're going to be pretty safe. So it's a really nice bit of kit, and Dustin absolutely loved it. We rode everywhere on it, and you know, quite aggressive off-road because he's got quite a bit to sort of play with in there. It's like a head pad, so you could say it's against whiplash, or let's face it, it's for when they fall asleep, because they always do at that age. It's for all that stuff, but Finn had actually customised a little old pair of carbon handlebars basically and put them on, so Dustin had something to hold on to, which you might see in a few of these pictures on screen. Yeah, it's a really cool piece of kit. It is heavy, that's the only downside, but I think it's absolutely fantastic and your kids will love it. But now Dustin's a bit bigger and he's able to sit up on his own and hold on and things like that. We've upgraded now and we've sort of moved away from the WeeRide and we've gone onto the Kids Ride Shotgun. Now this is the closest thing I think you can get to your kid actually riding a bike. So again, it has an artificial top tube, but it's super lightweight, made of alloys, telescopic, quick release levers, brilliant fitments. And in fact, there's a little shot on screen you can see here of a headset spacer on my Nuke Proof. It comes with 2 of these spacers, so you can actually migrate it between bikes without having to do anything. You literally just clip them on. Brilliant. Little stirrups with little mini pedals and little straps for your kids' feet to go in. It's got its own saddle and you can adjust the angle and sort of the position of the saddle on the top tube. And I've even got the Pro handlebar set up. So it's a miniature set of bars, like little 22.2 bars with little tiny little handlebar grips for their little hands. And you can move the position of those. And the best thing about it is because your handlebars are moving, so are theirs. So they're understanding what's going on as you're riding. Dustin loves it. He's like, wee, the whole time. He absolutely loves it. From the second we got on it, I think he felt like a grown-up, which is like probably like the coolest thing when you're that young. It's an absolutely brilliant piece of kit. We haven't done any sort of more aggressive riding yet because he's still sort of getting to grips with having to hold on a little bit on the saddle with his legs. But definitely check out Kids Ride Shotgun. Their stuff is just so cool. Next up, regarding tools. I've just done my man cave stroke bike shed and I was wondering what tools I should invest in. Should one have the press tools, brake bleed gear and so on? Thanks. I guess it kind of depends on what you plan on doing on your bike. I'd say N+1 applies far more with tools than it does with bikes, because there's always a new skill that you've just developed and you're keen to sort of practice out on your bike. Or perhaps, if like me, I constantly add to my toolkit over the years and I replace tools with better tools, or perhaps one tool might replace 3 tools that I've used in the past that I found are a better tool for the purpose. So I think it's something that does evolve with time. Now I'd say here's my list of things that I think that every sort of proficient home mechanic aspiring to look after their bike should have. So starting up, Allen and Torx keys, of course, because you're going to need these all over your bike. A soft-ended mallet. Now the soft end thing is key. So sometimes you just need to tap stuff and then metal to metal, not what you want. So a soft-ended mallet is good. A socket set with the following as a bare minimum. The sockets for your bottom bracket type. So obviously if you've got a threaded bottom bracket, this is where it will come in, and sockets to suit the top of your forks there so you can accurately tighten those up. I would recommend a torque wrench, but that can be a bit more of an advanced piece of kit. But that said, a lot of people have these for cars and other things, so you might be able to use one you already have. A saw and a saw guide, or alternatively a pipe cutter. So there's a couple of different ways you can go with that. A strap wrench, you can get a little cheap strap wrench. I think I've got one floating around here. Got this one cheap online, basically just for if you learn to do shock air can services. It's basically just like a third hand. Think of it as what grannies used to open jars and have got little old weak hands. Kind of the same thing for your shock on your bike. Fine picks, cable cutters, flush cutters. A brake bleed kit to suit your brakes on your bike is a great idea. I think people should be routinely checking their brakes, and I think annually you should treat your brakes to fresh fluid and, if necessary, fresh lines, depending on the condition of them. Greases, of course, you're going to need chain lube, dry and wet, to suit a variety of conditions, chain cleaner, a general grease, get something that's carbon safe, and then that way, regardless of the frame material of your bike, it will be future proof because you're not going to go through it that quickly. An assembly compound, get one that's carbon safe, suspension grease and suspension oil if you choose to work on that stuff, and some sort of chain cleaning. You could get something that's like a biodegradable, a lighter duty one, or you can get heavy degreasers depending on what your preference is. But there you go, you can just keep going and going and going, depends on what you want to do. But if you can bleed your brakes at home, replace the brake pads and change the lines, that's a big job. That's actually fairly easy to learn how to do it yourself. It will save you money and give you a really good understanding on the bike. But ultimately, if you're not sure about this, any of this stuff, you could watch our videos, or you could happily go to your local bike shop. It's entirely up to you. We just try and give you the advice so you can choose which way you want to do things. And next up from Traster, cross-country bikes. Pro bikes are spec'd with 38 tooth or even 40 tooth chainrings. Yeah, I've seen their legs. Manufacturers like Cannondale and Specialized recommend maximum chainring size at 36 tooth. Do pros have different frames, or do the mechanics produce special adapters to allow for the bigger rings? I think there's a combination of things here. So the manufacturers will be recommending the optimum chainring size to work with their frame functionally. Got to bear in mind, on a single chainring frame, it will be optimized around an ideal chain line. Yeah, so the higher or the lower the chain line is going to affect it from where the pivot point is. So they will say 36 tooth is the max you should go to have your suspension feeling as we intend. You go outside that realm, it's going to feel slightly different. The pro racers have very different needs though. When you've got legs like theirs that can just absolutely smash it the whole time, arguably they need to go up a size. But also the mechanics will know the nuances of those bike designs because they work closely with the manufacturers, so they'll know exactly what they can get away with. And as I said in an ask a few weeks back, the chain line is a guide on a bike. You can step outside that if it's just fractional, and you can quite often do that to accommodate a 38 tooth chainring. A 40 tooth, I think you've got to be pretty lucky to get one on, but 38, you see that quite a lot on the pros bikes. So yeah, it's a combination of things. When a manufacturer will have intended the bike to be ridden, actual clearance that exists, and then just sort of just taking the mick a bit with that chain line. The pro mechanics will have it optimized, and let's not forget that those bikes are treated meticulously as well. They are like completely stripped and completely rebuilt constantly to keep them working like absolutely perfectly. So I would say that's something. But yeah, just because the manufacturer says that, quite often you can still go up a couple of tooth and you won't affect things dramatically. Yes, it will be outside of their recommendation, but I've done it on many frames. Sam87, I tried SPDs and descending felt like standing on ice. The pedals with platforms stroke cages help this, or is it just the way the clips feel? Pedal and shoe interface is everything with SPD pedals. If you have a shoe that's got a lot of flex in it, like a trainer style looking shoe, like a downhill shoe for example, if you have one of those and you have a bare minimum SPD like the cross-country style ones, yeah, there's no support on the pedal. The shoe is designed to have flex in that shoe, even though it's still efficient. It has an element of flex, which is why that shoe is designed for using with a bigger flat style clipless pedal, something like a Crank Brothers Mallet or Shimano XTR Trail, something that's got space on it to support the shoe. It needs that for the feel. If you're using a small SPD, you need a shoe that's more rigid, something like a cross-country shoe that's got a support. As soon as you get the right combo, it's amazing. They work so well. So a cross-country style shoe with a cross-country pedal, downhill shoe with a downhill pedal, trail shoe with a trail pedal. It's actually pretty easy. I don't mean to sound like I'm taking a mick or mock you there, but I've had this before where I've got on with the wrong shoes and wrong pedal before and felt exactly that, like you're moving around, you're like, what the hell? And you've got no support. So yeah, don't be put off by them. You just might not have a few things just right in there. You do need an interface between the pedal and your shoe, not just the cleat and the shoe. The only time when that differs, as I said, cross-country shoe, cross-country pedal, because the shoe is so stiff that it's no longer a part of it. You get all the support from the shoe itself, not from the pedal, and it basically relies on the clipping in mechanism to keep things working. And the last question from Clemens Realm. Transitioned to tubeless last year, and yesterday I had a small puncture. Sealant didn't fix it because it was too dried up inside, so basically my fault. But when I took the tyre off, there was so much dried tubeless sealant in there, which made me think just filling up sealant every couple of months to get the advantage of on-the-fly repair makes my wheels heavier and heavier. Yep. Any work around there? Or just to take the tyre off every now and then and clean them? No, you're absolutely right. There's a few things to take into account here. So as it dries up, obviously the fluid is evaporating, so it doesn't weigh as much what's left on the inside of your tyre. But all that sort of the bogies and stuff, I think we call them, that's on the inside of the tyre there, yeah, you do have to get rid of that from time to time. So although you can keep yours topped up on sealant, yeah, make it a thing every few months, just put the tyre off and have a look. Now you can get specific products like this one. This is a glue sealant remover. So what you would do with this is you'd remove your tyre, any sealant that's still worthy, you can fish that out basically in a small little bowl or something, and you can put that back in afterwards. And you use this to basically break down the stuff that's on the inside of the tyre. You have to basically spray it on and leave it for a while, and then you can literally peel this stuff off and then get rid of it basically, and then you can put fresh sealant in and go again. But yeah, don't keep just adding to it, because you're exponentially just going to fill your whole tyre up eventually with the rubber stuff. So yeah, it would end up weighing more in time, but not quite as much as you thought, because the liquid does evaporate, and that is of course what weighs the most. There we go, out of questions for this week. Wow, what a session. Thanks for getting us loads of good questions. As always, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button up there. Check out our other videos at Surfed Up, because they're based on stuff we talked about in this video, so there might be stuff relevant to you popping up here, here and here around on the video screen. And get the questions in. Ask GMBN Tech. See you in the next show. See you later.